Isn't she a beauty? The details just keep coming. Like, the more you look at it, the crazier it gets. Now, don't tune away because you think that this is a motorcycle video, because it's not. This is a video about economics, and it's about a strategy that I've used over the course of my life that's made me hundreds of thousands of dollars, probably more than that, over the course of time, and anybody can employ it. All it takes is a willingness to dig in and actually work. And I'm talking about buying vehicles, cars, trucks, motorcycles, boats, anything, right? Buying vehicles at their scrap value. So here's the thing you have to understand about cars. Everything is worth what it's worth when it's new. So a $10,000 car, a $50,000 car, a $1 million car, eventually at some point is worth zero. All of them reach the same point, zero, where there's no desirability. They're no longer viable, they're no longer viably functional or in style. And guys who are my age that remember the muscle car era or the post-muscle car era, the late 1970s, early 1980s, know exactly what I'm talking about. There was a time that the cars that we go crazy over today, right, bring super money, were literally worthless. People would pull over on the side of the road, they'd run out of gas, they'd pull over on the side of the road, take the plate off and just walk away from it. Road runners, Buick Grand Sports, big block Chevelles. I mean, like, literally by the hundreds of thousands, these things were just abandoned. They were worth zero. Well, they were worth their scrap value, and at the time, like 25 bucks. And I can't tell you how many big block Mopar cars I bought way back then when I was a teenager for $25, $30. Now, here's the thing about this. They're all worth zero, or they're all worth their scrap value at some point. So at that point, buying a vehicle at or near its scrap value is a no-brainer. You cannot lose. You cannot go wrong. If you go and you buy this thing, let's say, now I'm going to use this motorcycle as an example. If you go and you buy this thing for, let's say, you know, I paid $150 for this. If I don't have any other options, I snatch it when I see it because it's cheap. It's on its way to the scrapyard. I snatch it when I see it. Now I bring it back. And now I see, well, what can I do with this thing? Can I fix it? Can I use it as is? Can I part it out? What are my options with this? Because unless you buy it, you don't have the options. But because you're buying it at scrap value, you have no risk. You can't go wrong. If it doesn't work out, you just drop it off at the scrapyard and get your money back. But in the meantime, you could be sitting on a small fortune in parts or even desirability. And I'm going to get to that on this bike in a second, because this applies across the board. So, and here's the thing, right? So you watch on YouTube. I know that at least half the guys that watch these channels are up against it financially. I get it. I know. The world it's tough, and it's getting tougher every day. Inflation, shrinkflation, new bills, higher bills, your insurance doubles out of the blue, all sorts of stuff. It's harder to get hours at work. It's harder to get money out of your customers. It's getting harder and harder and harder all the time. At least half the people that watch these videos are truly up against it. They watch these videos and they live vicariously through us YouTubers who are doing these things. We're going out and we're finding cars and we're getting them running and we're driving them home. But nobody ever really addresses the economic part of that. So as YouTubers, right, we kind of lead you guys astray. We make it look easy. We make it look simple. Here's an example, right? So I paid $150 for this motorcycle. Now I said it's a no-brainer because I bought it at or just above its scrap value, and it presents a ton of options. But at the current CPM, I only have to get about 15,000 views on this video, less than 15,000 views on this video for the bike pay for itself. So therefore it's a no-brainer. $150, of course, buy it. YouTube is going to pay for it. Well, unfortunately, that's the reality. Fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, which side of the camera you're on. As YouTubers, we get paid for what we do. manufacturers, companies are always throwing parts at us. They want you to represent this and sell that, and it's a when you watch what we do and you say, "Oh, I can do that too." Generally speaking, it's a false economy. When you see the YouTuber that's, let's say, doing a drive home and they have to stop at an auto parts store and buy, like, 40 gallons of antifreeze and a couple of cases of oil and everything, it looks like it's nothing. Well, I could do that too. Yeah, but he's dropping a few $100 right then and there. That, if you're up against it, if you're just trying to keep your family fed and pay the bills, but you just don't have that. So even if you get the car for next to nothing, it's like, what does it cost to actually get this thing back? And when it breaks down halfway home, you have to have it towed. Yeah, it's $1,000 bill. Like, who has that? So I try to do everything on this channel from a very grounded standpoint, from a very, like, okay, here's how you can do this, not how I can do this as a member of the privileged class, that we can throw stuff around and YouTube basis to do this, right? I try to approach it from a how can the average guy benefit from this? So buying vehicles at or just above their scrap value. And I say just above, I mean, okay, so if you, let's say the actual scrap value on this motorcycle is $100 and I paid $150, well, okay, so I'm taking $50 and I'm throwing it down on the table, right? It's a gamble. But I know from experience, I can't possibly go wrong. So here's what happened with this bike, how I ended up buying this bike. I needed a piece of furniture that was on Facebook Marketplace. So I ran up to Nashville and I got the piece of furniture that I needed. And while I'm at it, I'm talking to the guy and he says, "Do you know anybody who wants, an old bike?" I says, "What is it?" So he says, "It's a Honda Shadow." He says, "It's been crashed. It's been on fire. It's kind of wrecked, right?" I says, "Oh, all right, well, what do you want for it?" And before he even gave me a price, he says, "But it runs. I can fire it up for you." Here, watch here. That's the ignition system. Oh, it'll run. All right, it made a liar out of me. It made a liar out of me. But that's okay. We're gonna straighten it out. You get the idea, though. The engine spins, it cranks, it has fire, it's got compression. And as it turns out, I look at this thing and it's only got 7,700 original miles. It's barely broken in. So I'm really not interested in this bike, because I don't really want the bike. I have no desire for this bike. I have no need for this bike. But the price, okay, $150, it runs, it's intact, right? But it's really, really rough. It's been crashed. The reason I bought this bike was because it was as bad can be. So in other words, like, there's bad, ugly, damaged, mangled, and then there's the step beyond. So when I look at this bike, I see the step beyond, and I see the perfect rat bike. Now, if you guys aren't familiar with the rat bike movement, this has been around forever, and I actually built a couple of rat bikes back when I was in New York. I built one that was the back half of a Honda Twin Star and the front half of a CB450 chopper with ape hangers and all this other stuff, and I welded this thing together. It was the ugliest, most hideous thing. It was off the chain. It was a traffic stopper. When you saw this thing going down the street, it was like, oh. But I built it out of scrap parts. There were bikes that I was cutting up to send off to scrap, and I was like, wait, that engine runs in the back half of that, and the front half of that is pretty cool. Let's see what happens if I weld them together. So that's what I did. I just took the two bikes and I welded them together. I rode it like that for a while. And then I sold it and I actually made a profit on this thing. So it's like I'm into the rat bike, not into rat rods. Rat rods don't do it for me. Some of the stuff is really creative. It's cool. It's fun. So when I looked at this bike, I says, oh my God, you couldn't duplicate this. You couldn't duplicate this if you tried. So it's like you really have to look at all of the details on this to see what I'm talking about. But you see, everything works. The tail lights, the headlights, the brake lights, even the license plate light works. It's somebody spray bombed it black and then decided they wanted to take the spray bomb off. This is all house painted. This is all like roller house painted with glitter in it, if you can see that, right? And then they tried to stripe it too. The whole bike is like this. Everything is like this. I don't know what this guy was thinking, okay? it's got glitter. It's got glitter. Okay, the tank, it's only got half a tank. Same thing, painted with house paint with this detail in it. Look at the cap. Look at the details. This is all wrapped in gauze. Look, it's all wrapped in gauze. And this is just amazing. Headlight works. Look, is front tire. The rubber on this bike is nice. It's in good shape and nothing is bent, neither the front or the back wheels. The brakes work. The brakes work really well. Okay, then the engine spins. It has compression. All right, it'll start the next time I try. And look at this. Yeah, I know, this is all part of it. Look, this is all. This bike is so horrifyingly. What is this? I have no idea what this is, but it's taped to the handlebar. Look at the detail here. Look at that. Okay, this is exactly the way I picked it up. This is rat bike perfection. Look at this exhaust. This thing originally had a 2-into-1. It's a Honda Aero, so these things had a 2-into-1 exhaust. So look, they welded on this turn down over here and then ground it, you know, to make it kind of nice. And then this one, they just chopped it like that and it just hangs. Okay, you could not duplicate this. I don't have the imagination or the time or the energy to duplicate the horror that is found between these two wheels. So I said to myself, for 150 bucks, let me shut this ignition. Yeah, right, this is, of course there's no keys. Why would there be keys? This is the on-off switch. So I said, all right, the engine spins, it's got compression. It's only got 7,700 miles on it. It means it's a good motor. So somebody needing a motor, I could put this thing on Marketplace for 200 bucks and I made a profit off it. I could put it on it probably for a lot more than that, but I'm just saying, you get the idea. If I'm feeling ambitious, I could break this thing apart. So I've got the motor, I've got the carburetor, I've got all of these odds and ends, I got wheels, even the tires are saleable. If I really wanted to put the time and the energy into it, I could sell off each of those parts. It may not happen in a day, but they'll sell and I'll make a profit off it. I wouldn't have that opportunity if I didn't gamble, and it's not even a gamble if I didn't buy this thing at or just above its scrap price. Looking at how ratty it is, how over the top ratty it is. It's rat bike perfection, okay? It's rat bike perfection. I can bring this to a rat rod meet, like we have the Rat Rod Rumble here in Tennessee. I can bring this over to the rat rod meet, and as long as it runs, I could sell this thing for $600, $700. Boom, just like that. Because it's a rat bike. It's the perfect rat bike. People who are into that sort of thing, they're the connoisseurs of the rattiness, will be all over this. So to me, it was a no-brainer. Just buy it. Because if nothing else, if I don't part it out, if I don't use it sell it as a rat bike, I just drop it off over at the scrapyard. If not all, I'll get most of my money back. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. You got to take a little bit of a gamble sometimes in life. This is a strategy that works. When you see something out there that's selling, you know, just look for the bottom dollar on stuff, right? Like for instance, let's just say, for example, you're looking for a Jeep, you know, just to pull something. Go to Facebook Marketplace and put in the price parameter 0 to, let's say, 500 bucks. You'll be surprised at what pops up. You'll see a rolling CJ. You'll see, you know, without the motor, a Trans that's been sitting in the woods for a while. You'll see all of these things pop up for under $500 that you can go and buy and take that gamble on. And either you put it together yourself over time. Now, this bike, right? Let's go, I know, I'm all over the map, but just to go back to this bike, other options besides parting it out or selling it as a rat. Now, we know that the motor runs and it has compression. We know that it was riding before this guy crashed it. So he did crash it. You can see the brake pedal here is bent over. The back brakes do work, but the pedal's bent over. There's mud on it and everything. So this guy crashed the bike, and when he crashed the bike, he was like, no more. And there's evidence that it was on fire also. But the point is, you've got a basically good motor. You can assume because it was running when he crashed it, that the transmission, the drivetrain, you know, the drive shaft is a shaft drive bike. We know the wheels are good. We know that underneath all of this ratty, you know, just perfection, this rat perfection, we know that if we strip all of this away and we take all of the house painted pieces off, we actually have a sound motorcycle underneath. So what can you do with this? You could build a bobber, you know, a bar hopper. Just strip everything off, put a little tiny solo seat on there, and you got yourself a cool little knock around thing to, I guess that's a bar hopper type of deal. You could put a little more effort into it and you could turn it into a chopper, you know. There's so many different things you could do with this. It could be a drag bike. You could put knobbies on it and take it off-road. There's so many different things you could do with this bike. It presents so many different options. So when you see something like that, you jump on it. But none of this happens in a vacuum. Like, in other words, just because you buy something doesn't mean that it's going to automatically put money in your pocket or automatically present these options. You yourself have to dig in and make those options. You have to create those options, and it takes work. And that's the hardest thing. The hardest thing is going from sitting in the living room watching this video. The hardest thing in the world is getting your ass up and going out to the shop or the garage or the carport or wherever it is that you do your thing or able to do your thing. That's the hardest thing in the world. It's like breaking that static, you know, that, you know, the body at rest wants to stay at rest. The body in motion wants to stay at motion. Well, if you want to succeed with this, you have to be the body in motion. You see what I'm saying? You have to be the body in motion. And even if your pockets are empty, even if you're struggling, you're up against it, you can still pull stuff like this off. It happens all the time. It could be a riding mower. It could be anything that's within the world of machines, within the world of stuff with wheels. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I know your aspiration is an LS6 Chevelle. I get that. Everybody loves that. But, you know, if all you can afford is a $75 riding mower, you know, that needs a little work or it needs a magneto or whatever, and you could, well, then that's where you go. That's where you start. You know, and you say to yourself, well, I'm going to take this and I'm going to keep parlaying it until I get to the thing that I want. There's that thing where it's like you keep trading up. You know, you start with a penny, and then, you know, you buy a pencil with it. You trade the pencil for a knife, and you trade the knife for, you know what I'm talking about, right? And then eventually you end up with a house and a helicopter. You know, it's been done. It's been done. Apply that concept. But for you to apply that concept, you have to get off your ass and you have to get to work. All right, I hope you got something out of that. Wealth and prosperity for all. I'll see you tomorrow.